Hello, hello, good morning. Let's get everybody in here this morning. All right, all right. Happy Thursday morning. Welcome to the deep dive. Loving everyone coming in. This is awesome. All right. Very cool. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and get things started. Again, happy Thursday morning. Welcome to the deep dive. I am Coach Julie. Super pumped to be with you today as we get to talk about burnout and self-sabotage. You guys have been going through this Find Your Fire module, hit secondary gains. We've done emotional eating, fully based on self-sabotage. So today we get to talk about burnout, and burnout is such a common issue, common challenge, I think a commonality between working moms for sure, right? We're doing all the things, and I think this comes up quite frequently. And so we are going to take this call to dive right in, and we're going to listen to a video from Coach Tammy. She was with us for a little while, and she is a burnout coach, and she has got an awesome video. We're going to listen to her message today, and then we are going to come back together and just kind of talk about what comes up for you. Okay. If there's anything in particular that you're struggling with at this time, just what are you noticing after viewing this video? Okay, we'll come together and talk a little bit about that. All right. All right. So let me share. Okay, here we go. Coach Tammy.
I'm going to talk just a little bit about the nervous system without getting, I hope, too technical and detailed, but just enough for you to leave here with like, okay, I get it now. And then what we're going to do is talk about different levels, different strategies that you get to take into your everyday life that not only allow you to prevent burnout, but allow you to recover if you're experiencing it. Because if you've experienced burnout, you know that this is something that really takes you at the knees, and it affects high achieving, high performing women at unprecedented levels right now. So if you're here, you're really at what I consider to be the leading edge of the next kind of evolution of what it is to be human. So congratulations, you're actually a leader. Nothing has gone wrong here. We internalize burnout as something that has gone wrong with us. I remember from my own burnout journey, just to share a little bit about it, I was like, oh, it means I can't hang. I'm not as great as the guys. I had all kinds of stories about what burnout meant about me. And it took me years to discover burnout was happening for me. It actually was the thing that was trying to communicate to me that it was time for me to evolve beyond the belief systems, the thoughts, the emotions, the paradigm systems that I had been indoctrinated with. And so I want us to leave here, like if there's anything you get out of this conversation here today, is that I want you to understand that burnout isn't a moral failing. It isn't some sort of fundamental flaw, that it's actually a call. There's actually something being asked of us to evolve beyond where we are. And it's fascinating to me that the nervous system, the same thing that allowed us to evolve outside of the food chain millennia ago, is actually the same thing that can help us evolve beyond our pain and our suffering right now. This is like some divine intelligent design that we're now at the leading edge of understanding how to work with it. So let's talk a little bit about, thank you, Lori, love it. Yes, I agree. I don't think our burnout is a problem. And I think when we frame it in the context of it being a problem, we live in the problem. Yeah, this is I hope you leave here liberated, inspired, and like loaded up with strategies on how you're going to actually move forward with this. Fantastic already. I want us to just touch base on the connection between burnout and self-sabotage is that they are unintentional, right? Like nobody starts their day and they're like, I know I'm going to be so stressed that I'm going to derail myself and I'm not going to achieve any of my goals today. Nobody starts the day like that. right? And somehow these things happen. At the end of the day, we're going, oh my gosh, like I just repeated the same pattern that I told myself yesterday wasn't happening today. Let's talk about why that happens. I see so many heads nodding, so I know I'm hitting on something we're all experiencing. What stress it does to the brain is really fascinating. Stress moves all of the metabolic activity from the prefrontal cortex. You might have heard a lot about the prefrontal cortex already. This is an intelligent group of women. The prefrontal cortex is where our executive function lives, our ability to process complex information and synthesize a game plan that allows us to meet our goals. This is the overarching role of the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex also regulates emotions. When we're in a stress state, all of the metabolic activity, this is documented on functional MRIs, if anybody's interested in a little bit of the science behind it, that when we're in a stress state, meaning our sympathetic nervous system is activated, the metabolic activity literally moves from the prefrontal cortex and moves all the way back into the occipital lobe, into the most primal regions of the brain. This is also known as the reptilian brain. It gets that name because it's the part of the brain, it's at the base of the brain stem. It's what we share with all reptiles, mammals. Every species above reptiles has this part of the brain. It regulates respiratory rate, it regulates heart rate, it regulates body temperature and basic movement, okay? It tells you a little something about the IQ. Like the fact that we call it the reptilian brain gives you a little understanding into our our capacity to think and act and emote and act in our best interests, right? We have very limited choice when we are living from this part of the brain. And this part of the brain tends to be focused on 4 fundamental things. First of all, it creates time shortage consciousness. We're rushed. We don't have time for anything. Everything feels like it needed to be done yesterday. That's an evolutionary feature of the brainstem. It has kept us alive. This is what allowed us to extricate ourselves from the food chain. Okay? It's a good thing. But we get to use these as understandings of whether or not we're living from that part of the brain. So time shortage consciousness. So we always feel rushed. We always feel out of time. This is a sign of a stressed brain. We are always catastrophizing. We are always looking for what could go wrong. And we become overly focused on it. Like we play it out over and over and over again. This is because when you're in a stress situation, your survival was dependent on your ability to anticipate worst possible scenarios and act on them, right? But now the stressors aren't coming because we're actually about to be attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, right? These stressors are showing up on our phones, in our inbox, on the TV, on social media, right? The stressors are coming at us in a barrage of places. So it's important for us to realize, oh my gosh, if I spend how much of my day do I spend worried I don't have enough time and obsessing or just ruminating about all of the things that could go wrong? These are 2 indicators that we're trending in the territory of burnout. Okay. Another thing is we start becoming overly body conscious. This was beneficial at the time because we have to be physically aware of our safety. This has turned into we nitpick our bodies, we nitpick how we appear, how we look, because this is how we think we fit in or don't. Okay. So excessive body consciousness, time shortage consciousness, negative thinking or catastrophic thinking of all of the things that could go wrong. The 4th one, being overly focused on our environment and everything around us, which has this really interesting tendency of reactivating the stress response. Because with the brain is looking for, the brain finds. So when the brain is in a stress state, searching the environment for danger, it will find it. In our modern lives, it is so rampant, it is so available. The brain doesn't have to work very hard to find it. And now we're kicked into it again and again, right? So these are just sort of 4 overarching phenomenon of a stressed brain. One other tool that I like us to use if we're trying to decide where do I fall on the burnout sort of scale, because there's a lot of academic research that tells you there's charts and scales and all different kinds of ways of understanding whether or not we're in burnout. Let's make it really practical. Let's consider there's a scale. There's wait, let me see where I need to be so you can see my hands. There's renewing, regenerative, replenishing emotions, and there are stressful ones. I don't really classically characterize emotions as either negative or positive because they're all valuable. They're all just feedback. But if you take a minute right now, just think you can take the past week, you can take the past month. Just give yourself a window of time and go, how much of my time did I spend in a stressful emotional state versus in a renewing, replenishing, rejuvenating state? Okay. Stressful state being angry, pissed off, frustrated, overwhelmed, upset. There's no shortage, right? Renewing, regenerative emotions, joy, appreciation, gratitude, love, playfulness, courage. Okay. So just kind of think back, like, okay, let me get my thumb on the pulse of this. Where's my emotional tone? Where's my emotional set point? This lets you know how much time and energy you want to be invested in this. This is why it matters. Let's talk about why it matters. Not only do I not have access to my prefrontal cortex where I get to make decisions, I get to help guide my thoughts, I get to help guide my emotions, but I'm not in a stress state. Let's talk about what else happens. Your stress response is an incredible utilizer of energy. I don't know if you've noticed, but living life requires a good amount of energy. To keep up with our kids takes a good amount of energy. To work out, to get strong, takes a good amount of energy. I want you capturing that energy. I want you taking that back. This is your power. This is your life force energy. I want you harnessing that and directing it towards the things that matter to you, towards the things you want to achieve, towards the life that you want to live. And you have the ability to do that. But it takes a little awareness first. I always, like we keep talking about awareness here because it is the greatest liberator. And with awareness, we get brought to our knees oftentimes we get brought to our knees before we experience the liberation that's on the other side of our own transformation, right? So sometimes we have to be aware of like, wow, stress is really running the show. And there was a 2019 study done by the Gallup Foundation, which is considered one of the most reputable research agencies in the world. So it's a worldwide study, pre-pandemic. The majority of Americans spend the majority of their time in a moderately stressed state. This is concerning to somebody that has gone into medicine because they really care about the well-being, the health of people. This is deeply concerning. What ends up happening in a stressed state is that we're activating an inflammatory response. We acidify the blood. It's the root cause. Inflammation is the root cause of every disease process in the human body. I don't care if you're talking about diabetes, cancer, atherosclerosis, heart disease. I don't care what disease you're talking about. The root cause of every disease process is inflammation. We don't have an epidemic of diabetes, heart disease, cancer. We have an epidemic of stress in this country. We are the most stressed country in the world, and we're the wealthiest. This tells us something. Well, that's actually debatable whether or not we're the wealthiest anymore. But we don't have to live this way. The other thing I want to mention is that so much of the stress that we experience is external that becomes internal. It is external in terms of whether we're talking about toxins or stressors, right? Social media, like everything that we're experiencing is a stressor that's outside that becomes internalized. We're ingesting it either in through our mouths, through our ears, right? The brain, the body are experiencing an internally stressed state from external circumstances. It's important that we recognize this because this isn't about blame and shame. This is about recognizing, oh my gosh, this is like, we're all in interaction. This is not occurring in isolation. This is occurring as a part of a much broader dynamic that we experience with our families, with society, with our culture, with academia, with work, with our, name it. But there's one fundamental place where all of this lands, and that is within us. And that is where we are sovereign. This is where we have 100% agency if we so choose to practice it, expand it, and use it to our advantage. And we can. So sometimes when I look at these stress states, like not only do I want to get an idea of where do I stand, where's my emotional tone? Your emotional tone is very much like the set point on a thermostat in your house. You set that number and the machinery in the house does everything it needs to do to maintain that temperature. Your emotional tone, your mood, if you will, is a biochemical set point. The body becomes habituated, it gets used to seeing these biochemicals. And so when we want to move it, it takes not just awareness, but I want you understanding that when you're moving your set point, there's a little lag time between your intention to move your set point and your ability to actually do so. We want so much grace. We want so much love. We want so much self-friendship. We want so much self-respect while we're on this journey, while we're in process of doing this. And so I share this with you because I want you to understand, like, it's not just, I can't just go from frustrated, pissed off, angry to joy and love. There's a huge spectrum in between, right? But we get to practice. I can know where I want to live. And I can understand that there's basically an entire factory overhaul is going to take place. A manufacturing overhaul will take place. And you just decide every day that you're willing to do a little bit of work. So let's talk about the work. What is the work? How do we go from really stressful based emotions that we're living from to renewing, regenerative, replenishing emotions? Before I get there, I want to explain why they're renewing, regenerative, and replenishing. Did you know there's research that shows the more amount of time we spend feeling kind, joy, appreciation, love, courage, gratitude, the more time we spend there, the more we activate something called telomerase. Telomerase is responsible for building the telomeres at the end of your DNA. It's the integrity of your DNA, which creates the cellular blueprint for all of the cells of your body. As we age, as we're in a stress state, the telomeres shrink. Now we're prone to DNA degradation. That is massive aging. When we're in renewing, replenishing emotions, when we experience them, we actually produce telomerase. We're actually fortifying our DNA. Another interesting thing happens. We downregulate cortisol, the stress hormone. We upregulate hormones like oxytocin. Yes, you don't have to be nursing a baby or making love to produce oxytocin. We can do it anytime we feel appreciation. We can do it anytime we feel love. We produce all kinds of hormones that are responsible for producing collagen, right? The tensile strength of our connective tissue. This is like everybody's trying to inject that shit into their face. No, just decide that you're going to be aware of what's stressful in your environment. Let's talk low-hanging fruit, right? What's the low-hanging fruit? What 3 things can you think of in your life right now that are optional, that are stressing you out, that don't need to be happening? This is basic stress management. We're going to take it further because I think stress can become a really potent agent for self-transformation and evolution and growth, which I know is why we're all here. But basic stress management is like, think of 3 things that stress you out that give you very little ROI. We're either spending our attention or we're investing it. If you spend it, there's nothing coming back to you. When you invest your attention, there's an ROI. You get something back. So right now, what's your low-hanging fruit? What's the low-hanging fruit? Like sometimes we go to social media because we want to like veg out a minute and we realize 2 hours later we feel terrible. Sometimes we realize 10 minutes later we feel terrible. I don't know. It depends on what's on your feed. This is the other thing. Curate your feed. Don't let stressful things come in at you willy-nilly when you don't have your defenses up. You can engage in the things that are stressful when you are fortified, when you are ready for it. Don't let it come to you when you're at your weakest moment, right? So curate your feed. Make sure it's nourishing to you. Make sure it feels good. How do you know? How do I feel? How do I feel after I spend a little time here? I don't watch the news anymore. I scanned a few headlines of the New York Times and I'm done. I don't need this news cycle. How do you feel? How do you feel? You get to decide. This is you caring about how you feel. This is what's at the root of self-sabotage. We don't care we don't really care about ourselves. We're changing that game, mamas. We are leading the charge. And you know what? Our kids are watching. They're not going to do what we say. They're going to do what we do. When we protect our energy, when we protect our minds, we protect theirs. We teach them how to protect theirs. So just take a few low-hanging fruit because I want you leaving here. This is the stuff you can implement right now, today. Change your physiology, change your mind. You know, recently there was a group called, I think it was last week, where there was a segment where Lauren was holding up like the brain, right? Like how there's all of this incoming stimuli, the brain has all these filters, and on the side, there was a piece on physiology. That we can move our mind, like we can shift our physiology. This is it. I want to show you something that's going to blow your mind. I think it might blow your mind. We don't realize how massive the nervous system is. Okay, so you know your central nervous system. Everybody knows their brain. Everybody knows their spinal cord. Okay, but let's talk about the biggest part of the nervous system. It's called the peripheral nervous system. This is it, you guys. Massive. Do you see this? This is just the nervous system. There are no organs. There's no connective tissue. There's no bones. Look at what it light up like there's bones there. Look at the pelvis. Look at the knees. Look at, right? There's no bones here. It's lighting up like it is. This is how vast and dense your nervous system is. Your nervous system is the mind-body connection. This is the mind-body connection. It's obvious. 80% of this communication is bidirectional. Means it's going from the body back to the brain. So once we're in a mood, once we have a biochemical set point, it's flooding. This is good to know. Once your thermostat starts moving, once you start moving out of these stress-based emotions, you're not bathing in these stress-based hormones all the time. They're literally called shock proteins. We used to think that they only happened in people that were experiencing shock, which means a blood loss volume of greater than 2.5 liters. You have 5 liters total of blood volume in the human body at any given time. We used to think that shock proteins were only upregulated in experiences of excessive physical trauma. New research over the last decade has proven that we actually produce shock proteins when we experience stressful emotions for the majority of the time of the majority of our waking hours. Surprising to me. And I'm a doctor. Like, what? So this is incredible stuff. And we get to move that, but the body's going to signal to the brain. This is why awareness becomes so important. This is why caring about how you feel becomes so critical. Because if you don't have that level of awareness, you're just living by that. Because the body is so used to experiencing these biochemicals. When you even set an intention that I'm going to feel more renewing emotions, I'm shifting out of this. I am making this commitment to myself for my well-being, for my health, for my ability to create what I want to create in my life. It's important to realize that there's going to be resistance from the body. There's going to be, because it has a set point biochemically, and it will experience a sort of withdrawal. It's going to tell the brain, our cortisol levels are dropping. You should be stressed about something. And it will, without your conscious awareness, your body will feed back to the brain that it should find something to be stressed about. What do we know? The brain's going to find what it's looking for. How do you take your power back? You care how you feel. Oh, that's so interesting. Oh, that's so interesting. My body, I'm moving this up. Every time you capture it, you just got closer to liberation. I want you having this experience with it. Every time I notice I'm in a stress state, I can do box, right? Alana showed you box breath breathing. We can breathe. We can move the body. We can dance a little bit. We can discharge this energy. There are so many strategies. But it's important that we just develop our own little toolbox. I want you to develop your little toolbox. What's going to be your go-to? For me, I believe in a daily practice to help rebalance the nervous system. I experienced such epic burnout. I still have a daily practice, a breathwork practice that I do every day. I actually use biofeedback monitoring with my clients, and I use it myself. So I can train myself. This is what it feels like to be parasympathetic dominant. How fabulous that we've been designed with a sympathetic and a parasympathetic nervous system. You get to access your parasympathetic nervous system. You get to activate it, and guess what it does? It's the renewing, regenerative, replenishing part of your nervous system. It counteracts everything the sympathetic nervous system does. The largest nerve in the human body, interestingly enough, is the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the greatest activator of the parasympathetic nervous system. There are many access points to the vagus nerve. Your greatest tool is your diaphragm. Every time you intentionally move your diaphragm, you activate the vagus nerve. You activate the parasympathetic nervous system. You down-regulate stress hormones. You up-regulate renewing, regenerative hormones. You claim your power. You claim your energy, which is your power. You reclaim your brain, which is your power. Right? So, it's so interesting. I am obsessed with time. I'm obsessed with my body. I'm obsessed with my life partner. That's so interesting. I am overly focused here. Right. This is just an activated stress response. Right. I'm not living from here anymore. Right. Taking my power back. Right. What is it I really want? What is it I really want to see happen? What do I really want to feel right now? Now you have agency. Now you have choice. It can be that quick. That shift can happen like that. But it takes a level of awareness for us to know we have that power. You were given a vagus nerve for a reason. So cool. Use it. I want to be cognizant of time because I do want to leave some time for questions at the end. But I also want to talk about one other thing. This is all low-level fruit. This is all the low-hanging fruit that we've talked about today so far. Now let's talk about why stress can be used for your own evolution and your own growth. At the root of your stress response is a belief system that limits your life. At the root of your stress response, unless you're literally in a car accident, okay? Let me put a caveat. Unless you are physically in danger, you're about to get hit by a car, one of your children are about to get hit by a car, something terrible is about to happen, somebody's running around the house with a knife or scissors or I don't know what, okay? If you are physically safe, your stress response is an indication that you have a belief system that limits your life. So good to know. So good to know. 95% of your belief systems were installed before you were 8 years old. They're not even yours. They're not even yours. Not a problem. Not a problem. But I'm going to go find them. And I'm going to become willing to control, alt, delete them. I'm going to become willing to practice something that serves me. And now, yeah, me too, Jenna. I got chills too. Now I moved into the creator of my own life experience. This is massive. This is a level of massive liberation and self-transformation. But we got to do the low-level fruit first, friends. Right? We got to just decide we're going to care how we feel. We got to decide we're going to limit the stressful stimuli that doesn't have an ROI. If it doesn't have an ROI, it has no business in my life. It's cut and dry. Because we came here, we got shit to do. We came here like to do things with this life. We don't have time. You don't have time. I don't know. Maybe you do. I don't think you do. But I love that the same nervous system that helped us liberate ourselves from the food chain is the same nervous system that can help us evolve into who we really want to be. And I don't want any of us missing that opportunity. And I certainly don't want any of us thinking that our stress response or that our burnout means something has gone wrong. When, my friend, it is your awakening to the power that is really yours. Nothing has gone wrong here. You are working exactly the way you were designed. We're just figuring it out. This is a leading edge conversation. I'm one of the very few people in the burnout space that understands it the way that I do because I've actually experienced it. And I spent so many years shaming and blaming myself for my burnout, making it mean I can't hang, making it mean I'm not good enough, making it mean all kinds of bullshit about myself that was not true. And it isn't true of you. If these are stories you are telling yourself about your burnout, we're here to call bullshit because it's not true. Your burnout is here because I'm going to cry because you are at the leading edge of the evolution and the growth of not just you, but your family and your lineage. And you are in the most privileged position that you could possibly be in. It's time we honor that. And we can. I want to leave it open to questions because now I'm just ranting because I get passionate about this stuff. Because we take it personally and it's not. But our solution is personal. And the solution is within you. And you have access to it. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the nervous system without
All right. A lot of information. Dr. Tammy lays it out for us. So much science, so much, yes, Carrie, that was really powerful. So many takeaways. I have like 3 pages. I don't know. It's super interesting how she jumped right in and she's like, okay, let's realize that nothing's gone wrong. How is burnout happening for us, right? Then we kind of identify, what does that look like? What does a stress brain look like? Then I feel it's like we moved into the low-hanging fruit and then going deeper. So that is my recap, and I thought it was totally badass. I think that one thing want to toss out to you is the stress brain. What does the stress brain look like? And just to reiterate what what Coach Tammy was talking about was, the time shortage, right? We never have enough time, worrying about everything that could go wrong, just that negative mindset, worrying about appearance, body image, and then overly focused on the environment. And that's her definition of what a stress brain looks like. And I'm curious to know, has anyone ever experienced that? Right? I mean, how does that show up in your life right now? What does that look like for you? And then also want to kind of go into low-hanging fruit. I tossed that in the chat. And so identifying what that low-hanging fruit is and, action steps. How do we move forward here? How do we identify what is low-hanging fruit and what steps do we want to take control? Yeah, totally. Okay. I'm going to toss it to you guys. What, Courtney put in the chat, serendipitous timing. I had my aha moment this morning with my meditation and journaling. I feel overwhelmed and overstimulated this week. With all the external things, I was able to turn inward and find what I needed to do right now, take a pause and regulate myself and concentrate on what I can do today. Totally. Journaling, that was one of the big things that I caught on there as well. It's just the gratitude, going inward. Thank you, Courtney, for sharing. Paula.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have a different kind of AirPod, whatever. So I didn't know if it worked. I am currently very burnt out from my job right now and have been for quite some time. And I also just applied for a job that is totally outside of what I do now. Like I'm a physical therapist assistant. I love helping people. I'm tired of working at the place I work at. I don't like the management. I don't agree with it. I just so many things. But it's been, I mean, I've been here for 22 years and nothing's changed. And it took my mother-in-law getting sick and then dying unexpectedly for me to like change my thought, like I don't have to do this. I don't have to put up with this shit. I don't have to do any of it because I could die tomorrow and I'd be at a job that I've hated for a long time, you know? Which was sad that it took that for me to realize, but that's what turned my thought. And it's really stressful now at home because obviously my husband is dealing with that. My kids are dealing with that. And I'm super excited that I applied for this job and it's something new and it's going to be a huge pay cut, which my husband, that stresses him out because money's a big issue to him. And it's not something I want to talk about right now because he is so stressed out from being off from work and having to go back now and, his mom and all that stuff. But I have experienced burnout, all that to say. And it sucks. It really, really does. Like you just hate your life. But I'm super excited that I applied for this job. I probably won't get it. I'm not qualified and that's fine. But I created a LinkedIn account, and I can I'll just apply now to things and look at things. So baby steps and stepping stones, but anyway.
I think so sorry to hear about your mother-in-law.
Thank you.
And I think embracing the fact that you're at this stage in your career, you're noticing, how is burnout, serving you at this point, right? I mean, it's a series of 22 years. It's a reflection. It's a huge life event with your mother-in-law. and just embracing that it's okay that it happened this way, right? It's totally okay. And now taking the action steps forward, like you said, small steps, baby steps. How does it feel, Paula? How does it feel to take control?
I felt so good. Like like no fucks given, like to anything ever. Like we've our stress level in this house has been pretty high for, well, especially since January, but like we had our college son move back who hasn't been here for 4 years. He's been away. So that's a big deal. Having an adult child move back into the house. Then he had to have shoulder surgery. I had a major surgery on my pelvic floor and a hysterectomy and had to recover from that at the same time. So my husband was driving us to all these doctor's appointments. Same time my mother-in-law was ill. We didn't know what was wrong with her. And she died 5 weeks after her diagnosis. And it's just our stress has been up here since then. And me personally, I feel amazing that I did that. Like it's really helped me. Um, so, and I need to focus on me and not worry about how everybody else feels because I can't help them or change. I understand they have to go through their own grieving and whatnot, but me being somebody that likes to help people and also a mother, you think you can fix everything and for your kids, no matter how old they are. Like my youngest is 18 today. So they're all adults. But watching them at this funeral was so hard. Like you can't, they have to do it themselves. They have to grieve themselves and you can't fix it. You can't nothing but hug them and you know, but anyway, I'm just blabbering. Um I just feel really good and proud of myself that I applied for a job that I've been talking about since I've started Strong Mom, and that's been 5 years, like this summer. But it took 5 years for me to do
Oh yeah, way to go. Huge win, huge step. I mean, and you needed every bit of those 5 years to prepare you for this moment, right? You needed that time, you needed the clarity around it. You needed to maybe build the confidence. I mean, there was a lot of things, a lot of components that go into making a decision and just saying, you know what, it's time. It's time to make a big decision, a big life decision. I need to do this for me. And I think other moms out there need to hear this 100%. And because you are definitely not alone in sitting in a career for many years that you're not happy with. And it's so powerful to be able to know that you have control, that you can make a change, and that it's hard, but you can do it. And how you feel in the midst of recognizing the excitement, that you're proud of yourself, the confidence, all the things, while in the moment is important as well. So
it.
thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Anyone else want to share a little bit about burnout or any takeaways from Coach Tammy's message? I love this, Angela. The low-hanging fruit, right? When I put an end to watching the news and staying away from social media, I felt a huge difference. And the time savings it has given me is huge. Yeah, low-hanging fruit, guys. You're getting some shout outs here, Paula. Sounds like Megan is toying with the same idea of a career change, Carrie. We've we've been on calls before, and definitely, I'm curious to know what do you think about Paula's giant step? And I know that you've been at a job for 23 years. Awesome. So your message, I have also decided to find another career path. So liberating. Love that you have the courage to move on. So you have taken the steps forward.
I'm in the middle of it. I'm and other calls I've mentioned that so I've flipped houses on the side for about 5 years, and actually, gosh, no, it's like 6, 7 years now. And I'm so fed up at my job too. It's 23 years. I feel like nothing's happened. There's tons of talk about, how to improve things and make it better. And my company's also celebrating their 100th anniversary next week. And, that's a huge milestone for them, but I'm just not feeling it. Like I don't, yeah, as a company, yes, it's an amazing company. But then when you dive into the nitty gritty and, my management hierarchy is, I just see it going nowhere. And actually I see myself going nowhere. So it's like, why am I doing this? So yeah, I made the decision like beginning of this year. I'm gonna find some way, shape, or form to replace my income with house flipping or investments or whatever it takes, rentals, whatever, and hopefully quit my job. But I may not get to that full replacement, which will also make my husband very nervous. But so it's essentially a pay cut. But we're in a much better financial state than we were even 7 years ago when I started. Yes, my kids are either, they're on the verge of going to college, but we saved for them pretty well. And yeah, so I'm just like, I think, and I'm not regretting it took so long. I'm sitting here saying, I think it had to be this time because I would have been too nervous before, or I was too nervous before with not having the right financial state with our family and jobs and everything. So yeah, I'm ready, and it's liberating and relieving to make that decision. So yeah, I found a house today too that I may bid on that was right by my dad's old house. And it's a nice crappy house that I can fix up. I just hope they will take the really low bid that I give them. So yeah.
Energy when you talk about it, right? When we're talking about our company's 100 year versus putting a bid on a house, your energy shift is like crazy.
Yeah. And yeah, so I'm excited. And then hope to, buy another one, which I usually buy like one a year or so. And I hope to buy, like, my goal is at least 2 this year. So we'll see. But yeah, or more.
Yeah, 2 or more, for sure. I think that's pretty badass. Taking the small steps, and you said whatever it takes, and I put that in the chat because that's exactly it, guys. You can't put a price tag on your happiness, right? And you have to kind of know when enough is enough. And she talked about the stressors. What does the stress brain look like, and why would we choose to live in that state? And then identifying what it takes to get out of that state. And for Paula and Carrie, it is a career shift, tired of living this way. I'm tired of, this is not how I want to show up in my life. And you only have one chance, guys. Embracing it, it takes what it takes, and let's make the change, right? It's hard. It's scary. It's hard, but it's worth it. All right, guys, what else? What other takeaways? What else did you guys come away with? The message is very sciencey, so I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I need a textbook. Can you draw me a diagram, right? But yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Hi. I think for me, when I noticed the last few days, maybe 2 or 3 days, today included, I've been feeling really like irritated by everything. Like the dog breathing, like would enrage me. And it's like, okay, something like this is, he's allowed to exist. Um, and I find like I've been journaling that at night, like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I feel like so overstimulated. And then would just have to like reframe it. And so this morning, part of my aha was just like putting all those pieces together and just know like my brain is stressed out. It's on fire right now from all the things, and I can tone it down. Like the real world's not on fire. Like I am safe, things are going to be okay. It's off schedule and things are not, routine and normal like they usually are, but we're going to be okay. And so that was just, was so freeing when I kind of put that together and knew that my reaction to everything around me and like why, um, I just am irritated at everything and everyone. It was just freeing to make that realization and to really like go inward and think about like recognizing that all of those signals meant there's a need that's not being met for me. And I could recognize that and think about what it is that I really needed and wanted right now as we're going through this situation or this week or whatever, and to just like narrow it down to 2 or 3 things that I needed um, to focus on for today and the coming weekend. And like that already just changed the whole tone of my morning. Realizing that. So that was just so powerful. And it was like a 10-minute practice, like it took 10 minutes to kind of to do that. But I just really paid attention and tuned in. So it's a good reminder. It doesn't have to take much to redirect.
I think the challenge, at this point in year 2, we have the tools. Sometimes the challenge is slowing down, right? And doing the work. And, kind of curious, Courtney, as you were recognizing this, the dog is breathing, right? As you're recognizing this, what, is this something you do regularly? Yeah, tell us, just kind of curious, what made you slow down and go inward?
Well, my focus for like after coming out of the transformation challenge, my new focus, and then kind of for the Lenten season was to get back to doing daily breath work. And I've been resistant to it for a long time and not consistent with it. But I found this little monthly challenge on Insight Timer, and I thought, well, that's easy enough. I can follow these people. And I thought the last week or so, I found myself like craving that time. And even finding they're not the meditations I would have chosen, but it's interesting. I'm like able to refine what kind of breath work or meditation things I want to listen to, whereas before I was like not really that interested in it. And so just having like this craving for like that inner peace and inner solitude and quiet to go inward. I better pay attention to this. So I've been trying to do that. What my goal is to establish a habit in the morning. So waking up, brush, get cleaned up, and then sit down to do my breath work or meditate from Insight Timer and do a little journal entry before I start my day. And that's been really helpful.
And that came from the Transformation Challenge, and notice there was a little resistance, but you pushed through.
A lot of resistance.
But you were able to, push through and just noticing the benefits. And I think a huge part of that is just, why am I feeling this way? Instead of just living in that feeling, really embracing, what you're feeling, the emotions that are coming up for you and using them to serve you, to support you rather than going a different direction. So yeah, I love it. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Let the dog breathe. Okay, Courtney. It's okay. Oh man, guys, we have about 8 minutes left. Is there anything else you guys want to share from the call or just in general? From the message, I should say.
I'll go quickly.
Awesome.
So the one thing that I came away with a lot of different things, but I never really thought about the stress and like your physical well-being and how it's connected in that way with inflammation. That was huge for me. Like I was like, oh my God, right? Like you can control the inflammation in your body by the way that you think about things, which puts stress on you versus doesn't put stress on you. So that was a nice little spin that I didn't really put 2 and 2 together until now. I mean, people say it, yeah, if you're stressed, it's not good for your body. But to hear her talk about it scientifically and the real explanation as like what really happens, that was a good thing. I liked that a lot. So
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I love the sciencey part of this, and just kind of like really digging in. The root cause is inflammation. I mean, what? That was a note that I took specifically. And, it's pretty amazing how our body works and how our mind affects our body. And yeah, I mean, with that knowledge, Angela, what do you, how would you put that into action? How would you? Yeah, I want to
I
challenge you.
know, right? So, well, I think that I'm a very detailed person and I could stress myself out from walking in the house, going to the back of the bedroom, just by looking at like all these little details in my home that I want to fix and make perfect. And I'm much better than I used to. It's kind of like that perfectionism. And so, like, we just had a little bit of remodeling done. And of course, when you have remodeling done, it's like this slippery slope where, well, let's do this next. Well, let's do this next. So I need to step back and remind myself when I'm walking in my house that not everything needs to be perfect because it's never really ever going to be perfect. But I like just going through the motions of this call, I'm thinking about that's like, it's such a silly thing. It's like talk about the least important thing in my life going on is whether I need to paint the baseboards in my house because there's scratches on them from the dog. Talk about dogs, Courtney. So those are the things I need to like kind of step back, be aware that I'm doing that to myself and say, it's really not worth it, Angela. It's okay. It's okay if you just walk by that, it's okay. You don't have to fix it. So I think that's what I'm going to work on.
It's okay.
Yeah.
When those thoughts pop in your head,
Right.
saying it's okay.
Right. And really the ROI that she talked about, like, it's just not there. It's not worth it. You're getting nothing out of that, but just stressing yourself out. So why stress yourself out over it? Kind of thing.
Excuse me, to Courtney a little bit too, and just recognizing that you're feeling this way. Instead of carrying that stress from the front of the door to the back of the door or back of the house, you just carrying it all the way, and then you carry it out of the bedroom, and then you carry it around the house, and then it just builds and builds. But when you recognize it, just taking that pause and getting curious about that emotion and why it's coming up for you, and then your mantra, it's okay. It's okay. The baseboards are fine.
Right. And there are things like I'll make a list. Sometimes I'll just make a list and say, okay, you put it on the list. It's not your priority, but if you have time, maybe you go check one of those things off, and that will like decompress me sometimes. So that's also, instead of just like letting it all go, that's not my personality, but the list helps. So that's, yeah.
You know, it's the action steps. You know, you put a list, there's some things that need to happen, and then we've got to act on it. And sometimes that's hard. Sometimes we want to sit in the list and just continue to gather and continue to gather, and that just allows us to sit and overwhelm longer. But yeah, it's totally taking action. Get prioritizing and taking action, what needs to happen. So, yep,
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Anyone else want to share with the last couple minutes? All right. All right, all right. So, hey, want to remind you guys, we got a book club coming up next week. Pretty cool, the Let Them Theory. So I hope you guys will jump in there and check that out. Awesome book. Be tons of conversation, and it's an amazing way to really connect with each other on this topic. So hope you guys will do that. Jump in there, enjoy that. And then Ilana posted some calls. You guys have probably seen in the inner circle some new call times. We're testing some things out. So jump in there, see what works for you. And we will, we've got another level 2 call coming Sunday, open group coaching with Ilana. So you guys have an amazing week, have an amazing weekend, and we will see you again real soon, okay? All right, bye guys.